The only thing worse than coming home and seeing your wife in bed with the mailman would be drafting these 5 players who I believe are going to sink your fantasy football team in 2025 like that iceberg did to the Titanic. In today's video, we're going to be going in depth into 5 different players who I will not draft in 2025 fantasy football. And by the end of today's video, you will realize why you don't want to draft them either. Before we get into things, though, please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below if you are new to the channel. And whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. We begin with my first player that I will not be drafting in 2025 fantasy football, and that is going to be Zay Flowers, wide receiver of the Baltimore Ravens, sleeper ADP wide receiver 24 off the board at pick 51. So if you are in a 12-team league, he currently comes off the board as the 3rd pick inside of the 5th round. Now, when it comes to Zay Flowers, this has been a guy that I have talked up in the past. I have been a Zay Flowers truther, and the thought process I have thought in the past was incredibly sound. If you looked at the wide receiver core in Baltimore over the last couple of years, there was a very clear path towards Zay Flowers becoming the wide receiver 1 and holding that role off from the other wide receivers on the roster. And honestly, that is a similar argument you can easily make this season. If you look at the wide receiver room in Baltimore, outside of Zay Flowers, they have Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Walker, Tylan Wallace, right? Not a group of wide receivers where you would project any of these guys to be able to overtake Zay Flowers as the wide receiver 1 on the team, right? Sure, DeAndre Hopkins from 4, 5, 6 years ago, he would have easily been able to hit Zay Flowers with the 5-knuckle shuffle and be able to overtake him as the wide receiver 1 on the team, but this is 2025, not 2021, 2019, right? So Zay Flowers is still the clear wide receiver number 1 on the team, and that is why I have liked him so much in the past. But over his last 2 NFL seasons, ever since he entered into the NFL, it has become abundantly clear that if you are drafting Zay Flowers inside of the top 24, if you're drafting him as a top 24 wide receiver, you are making a monumental mistake. Now, does Zay Flowers have top 24, top 12 upside in any given week? Of course he does, but we have seen a pattern over the last 2 seasons that is very, very clearly going to repeat itself. And that is the fact that Zay Flowers simply does not score touchdowns. This is a guy that in 2023, his rookie year, plays in 16 games. He gets 108 targets, 77 receptions, but he scores 5 touchdowns. And my thought process going into last year is, hey, maybe they get Zay Flowers more involved inside the red zone, even though they bring in Derrick Henry, they have Lamar Jackson. Maybe Zay Flowers can get that uptick to maybe 7, 8 touchdowns. Maybe he sees a bigger increase in targets and receptions. He gets 1,200 yards. Maybe he has a great season for fantasy, right? The thought process I thought was sound. I felt like I painted a great picture as to why Zay Flowers could have this breakout season. And then last year, sure, he does get the most amount of receiving yards in his NFL career with 1,059, but he only scores 4 receiving touchdowns, which was 1 less than his rookie year. And the reason why he is not able to score touchdowns is very obvious. It's right in front of your face. It's on the screen right now. It is because the Baltimore Ravens run the ball the 2nd highest amount of time in the league. This is a chart that is called team pass play percentage. This is about who throws the ball the most. And if you go all the way to the top here, team 32 is going to be the team that throws the ball the least. That's the Philadelphia Eagles. The team that throws the ball second least is the other bird team, or one of the other bird teams, the Baltimore Ravens. 46.45% of the time they throw the ball. When you're in the red zone, this is a team that is going to run the ball. If you're on the 5-yard line, you could just say, fuck it, let's run the ball 3 times. Let's run the ball 4 times with either Lamar Jackson or Derrick Henry, and you are probably going to get in the red zone. I mean, into the end zone, right? You're already in the red zone. So it's going to be very easy for this team to punch the ball in running the ball. And while I am not a big believer in Mark Andrews is still on this team. And that is a guy that scores a boatload of touchdowns. So when you have a running back and quarterback who are going to steal away so many red zone opportunities, when you have a tight end in Mark Andrews, who some might say is washed, this, that, and the other thing, sure, maybe I don't love him at his ADP, but that's a guy that could easily score. If he plays 17 games, he could easily score 8 touchdowns. You could easily see him doing that. There's going to be games where that motherfucker scores multiple touchdowns in a given game. So this is a setup where, sure, Zay Flowers is the number one option, and I actually think Lamar Jackson is a much better passer than people give him credit for, but it doesn't really matter if Zay Flowers isn't going to be getting that opportunity inside of the red zone. And I don't think Zay Flowers is a bad player, right? If he was coming off the board as the wide receiver 30, the wide receiver 32, then I would be much more likely to select him. Why is that? Because I believe he's a solid flex option, a wide receiver 3, right? A guy you throw into your lineup, that spark plug, because we know that Zay Flowers has that 25 plus point upside. We know that to be true, right? We know Zay Flowers can do that. But, and this is a big but, shout out to Violet Myers, when you are getting a decent amount of targets, like he's going to probably see a similar amount of targets if he's not breaking off crazy plays repeatedly, and if he's not scoring touchdowns, it's going to be very hard for him to pay off as the wide receiver 24 in terms of ADP. Wide receiver 25 last season, 35 in terms of points per game. He played in all 17 games. He was 20th in targets, 22nd in receptions, 16th in receiving yards, and 49th in total touchdowns. The efficiency stats are fine, right? He's 10th in yards after the catch, 17th in yards per route run, 26th in yards per target, 26th in yards per reception, 13th in yards per team pass attempt, 9th in target separation. I'm not saying that Zay Flowers is a bad player. This just is not the right situation for him to have a humongous season. So as the wide receiver 24, there is, in my opinion, zero reason to draft him at that price. Next up, we move to Patrick Mahomes. Now, when I say the name Patrick Mahomes, a lot of people are going to run to the comment section. Nick, how can you avoid Patrick Mahomes? Don't you know that he is the best quarterback in the NFL? I fully agree that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the National Football League. And if you're like, Nick, actually, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, whoever you say is better, he's at least a top 3 quarterback in the National Football League, right? And if for some reason someone captured my whole family and they had him tied up and they said, you know what, bad things are going to happen to them, if this quarterback that you get to pick doesn't come from the 25 to 30-yard line, their own 30-yard line, march all the way down the field, score a touchdown with 2 minutes left in the game. You want to know who I'm going to select as my quarterback? Patrick fucking Mahomes. Life on the line, death beam pointed at earth. I'm picking Patrick Mahomes. But in fantasy football, just because Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback doesn't mean you got to pick him. Because when you're coming off the board as the quarterback 6 in round 5, pick 10 inside of the 5th round, pick 58, that price is far too heavily inflated, like you're nuts if you haven't gotten some play in a while. Patrick Mahomes is inflated because of the name value. And I can guarantee you, in a lot of your guys' leagues, or some of your guys' leagues, where you're playing with, Jim from The Office, right? Your boss, Michael Scott, right? When you're playing with your college buddies, your buddies from high school, these are the kind of guys that might not be watching a fantasy video in June, right? These aren't the sharpest knives in the cupboard. These are the kind of guys that see Patrick Mahomes blow a wad in their pants and instantly select him. Now, again, I think Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. But there has been a clear drop-off in production over the last 2 seasons. You can just see it blatantly on the screen. He was in points per game quarterback 11 last season, points per game quarterback 10 the season prior in 2023. And the reason behind this is very evident. For one, this is a team that is a lot more comfortable running the ball now compared to in the past because their defense has been a lot better. Now, I understand that Isaiah Pacheco was a massive bust last season, but if Isaiah Pacheco plays how he did the first 2 games of last season before he got hurt, or if he plays like how he did in 2023, that is a very reliable running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. And if they aren't trying to air the ball out as much, if they aren't trying to throw the ball at such a high pace, then Patrick Mahomes is going to be a casualty of that. Plus, facts are facts. NFL teams are playing 2 high safeties a whole lot more than they used to, and that is limiting the yards per attempt for Patrick Mahomes. If you look at the graph on the screen, 6.8 yards per attempt last season, 7 the season prior. When this guy was popping off, when this guy was dropping his nuts in the mouth of defenses, having these huge fantasy seasons like 2022, where he's the quarterback 2 in points per game, he averaged 8.1 yards per attempt. 2020, he's the quarterback 2 in points per game, 8.1 8.1 yards per attempt back in 2018 when the guy absolutely exploded. 8.8 yards per attempt, quarterback one in terms of points per game. Now, again, Patrick Mahomes is this great quarterback. In a way, he is safe, right? Like wrapping a condom over the quarterback position. You know he's going to be a top 12 quarterback every single week. But when you are paying the price, when you are paying the quarterback 6 draft capital, that is outrageous. That is ludicrous. That is insane in the membrane. He, last season, was 26 passing touchdowns at a 4.5% rate. You know, Mahomes could throw 5.5, 6% rate. No one's shocked. He threw the 9th highest amount of touchdowns, but he threw 11 interceptions, and he doesn't really have all that much rushing upside to really inflate him further, right? Because we know in fantasy football that even if you're in a 6-point per passing touchdown league, having that rushing quarterback is an advantage because you only have to rush 10 yards to get 1 fantasy point. You have to pass 25 yards to get 1 fantasy point. Now, I know that's very elementary. That's a very basic take, but it's true. When you're drafting Patrick Mahomes, expecting this motherfucker to sling the ball the most amount of times in the NFL, you expect him to throw the ball around 650 times, I just don't project that to happen. I like Rashee Rice. I like Xavier Worthy. I like the wide receivers. I still think Kelsey's fine, right? They have a fine wide receiver core, but if Mahomes is only going to throw 28 touchdowns, right? Throws 28 touchdowns next season, I don't project him to be a top 6 quarterback, right? Back in the day, this motherfucker's thrown 40, 50. No, obviously those are outliers, but those are things that were possible. Multiple seasons in a row where he's throwing 36 plus passing touchdowns. I just don't project that anymore. And I think you are taking Patrick Mahomes way too high, strictly based upon his name value. Next up, we move to Deebo Samuel, wide receiver of the Washington Commanders. Sleeper ADP wide receiver 40 at pick 87, the 3rd pick inside of the 8th round. Now, normally, I am someone that as you get deeper into the draft, you know, I like taking those upside swings on wide receivers, running backs, right? I understand that you don't have to be as safe as you get deeper and deeper into your draft, but I think you are making a grave mistake selecting Deebo Samuel. To me, I have been a Deebo Samuel fader for what feels like a fucking decade at this point. I've been avoiding him like the bubonic plague, and it is because while he does in any given week have the upside to score 25, 30 plus fantasy points, I believe that. And anyone with the screws correctly bolted into their brain, right, screwed in correctly, they will know that Deebo has that kind of upside. The guy is fast, and even though he didn't look too fast in that practice video yesterday where it looked like he had 3 midgets fucking on each foot weighing him down, right? Like, I don't know why I just instantly thought of that, but that's just, what came to my mind. Deebo Samuel looked like he had fucking 80-pound weights on each leg, right? It was very, very bad visual. I'm not too worried about it. Bad visual. That wouldn't really affect my thought process because I was already fading him, right? This is a guy that had a huge season back in 2021, right? You look at those numbers, chef's kiss, magnifique, 21.2 PPR points per game, beautiful. But what carried his 2021 season was scoring 8 rushing touchdowns, and the rushing opportunities just aren't going to be like that in Washington. I don't believe that he's going to get a shit ton of opportunities to where he could rush in 8 touchdowns, and it hasn't been the case for him in San Fran. We saw a strong dip-off, just 13 points per game in 2022. Then he has a bit of an uptick, 16.2, and then 2024, just 10.2 fantasy points per game. I get that everyone loves Jaden Stormy Daniels. I get that everyone is excited about the Washington Commanders, and rightfully so, be excited. Like, I think Deebo is a great real-life ad for the 49ers. He adds a lot more to this team than any of the other wide receivers that they had on this roster prior outside of Terry McLaurin. So that's great. That's a great move by the Washington Commanders. But in my opinion, this is a guy that has clear blemishes on the profile. Efficiency last season was terrible. 34th in target separation, 61st in dominator rating, 85th in contested catch rate, 127th in EPA, 68th in true catch rate. Sure, he's 25th in route win rate. Again, the guy can win routes. He can get open, but I don't project him to be the wide receiver 1, overtaking Terry McLaurin as the wide receiver 1 on this team. I do not project him getting a whole lot of rushing opportunities. Sure, maybe he gets 30, maybe, but I don't even know if that is going to happen, right? So, in my opinion, you should be preparing for the worst with Deebo. Again, in week 17 of your fantasy football championship, right? If you had to play Deebo Samuel, again, that's a guy that can win you your fucking championship in one game. But I believe that across the season-long sample size, you are going to be very, very, very angry if you draft Deebo Samuel. You look at the games from last season, right? He comes out the gate hot. He's the wide receiver 12, and then wide receiver 17. Everyone's like, Nick, you're an idiot. You told me to fade Deebo. Ha, 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 you fucking idiot. Right? And then he's the wide receiver 46, wide receiver 77, 10. Oh, he's back. Wide receiver 105. Sure, he got hurt in that game. Whatever. Then wide receiver 40, 23, 57, 71, 82, 55, 68. Then magically he's the wide receiver 5 up against the Dolphins and Jalen Ramsey. And then wide receiver 49. You don't need Deebo Samuel. He's not going to overtake Terry McLaurin as the wide receiver 1. He's not going to get those rushing opportunities. The touchdowns, unless the touchdowns just heavily come his way, I genuinely just do not believe in Deebo. I think he has gotten considerably worse ever since 2021. I do not believe in him one bit. Next up, we move to Jaylen Warren, running back of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sleeper ADP running back 33 at pick number 90. Currently coming off the board as the 6th pick inside of the 8th round. But before we break down Jaylen Warren and the 5th player that I ain't got time for, ain't nobody got time for that, I ain't drafting, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. Underdog has a great offer for you guys today. If you are a new user and sign up using promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description, you will get a free pick, which is going to be Tyrese Halliburton higher than half of a total point, plus a first time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash if you sign up using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description. My favorite thing to do over on Underdog is to do their best ball drafts. If you don't know what best ball is, it's the best part about fantasy football. It's the draft and that's it. There's no waivers, no trades, and no in-season management. Underdog automatically sets the highest scores and puts them into your lineup at the end of every single week. Their main tournament, Best Ball Mania, $15 million in total prizes, $2 million to first place, $1 million to second place, $25 to enter. They also have entries at lower prices as well. Make sure you guys do check out Underdog, promo code Notorious, or click on the link in the video description for today's offer. Back on into things here, we're talking about Jaylen Warren. Now, Jaylen Warren, kind of like Zay Flowers, has been a guy that I've given the metaphorical Gawk Gawk 9000 special to before. I have hyped him up. I've talked about how he was better than Najee Harris. I don't believe he's better than Caleb Johnson, right? But go ahead and have that argument, right? You look at his efficiency, the guy's pretty decent, right? 9th in yards created per touch, 13th in yards per touch, 28th in true yards per carry. But there is a problem here. Regardless on how skilled you believe this guy is, the team doesn't believe it. Because if the team did believe it, you better believe that Najee Harris would be sitting on the fucking bench watching. He'd be chilling in the cuck chair watching Jaylen Warren succeed. Right? Now we get into this season. It's Caleb Johnson. It's Jaylen Warren. They're going back-to-back in fantasy drafts. Offensive coordinator Arthur Smith on if Jaylen Warren is the Steelers starting running back. We've got a lot of weapons there. Just talking about Caleb, a different style player than Jaylen. We added Kenneth Gainwell. There's a lot of depth in that room. It'll work itself out. I don't need to read in between the lines here. You just heard me say what Arthur Smith said. Now, Arthur Smith probably sounds more like fucking Doofy from Scary Movie because the guy's an absolute fucking moron, an absolute stooge. But I believe that if you just read that, you use your brain, Jaylen Warren isn't the starting running back, and he won't be. I can guarantee you that. I'm no John Elway, right? I can guarantee you that. Jaylen Warren will not be the running back 1. They don't believe in him. Doesn't matter how good we think he is. It doesn't matter how good we believe the upside is because of the potential targets with the rushing opportunities. Look, if you gave Jaylen Warren the workload, this guy would be a beast at this pick. You would be laughing, haha, straight to the bank. You would be talking about this as an all-time heist, a bank robbery, right? What Floyd called the fight up against Conor McGregor, right? That's what we would be talking about with Jaylen Warren. But that's not what we are going to get. We are going to get, it is like, you know, when you're level 1 in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and your tag is SSDD, that stands for same shit, different day. It's the same shit, different year. Keep believing in Jaylen Warren again. I like the talent. I think the player is fine. But Caleb Johnson's going to be the guy. They're going to run the fuck out of the ball. And Jaylen Warren's going to be stuck watching on the bench. And you're going to be disappointed again. Now, sure, if Caleb Johnson gets hurt, knock on wood, Jaylen Warren's definitely the guy to own. He is miles above Kenneth Gainwell. But for me, Jaylen Warren, I just have no interest in him because, again, we've seen this before. We've seen this play out, and now we're just falling for the exact same trap, right? It's like you ever have a mice problem, right? And you put a couple of traps out, right? And oh my gosh, you got one of them. And then the other mouse, fucking idiot, does the same thing, falls for the trap, boom, dead. Okay? So, Jaylen Warren, you're the mouse falling for the cheese again. Don't draft Jaylen Warren. Don't fall for it. Don't overthink it, because people are going to be like, oh my God, the efficiency. Oh, this year's different. It's not. Definitely not. And Arthur Smith just told us that it's the same as always. Jaylen Warren, not going to be the guy. Final guy to discuss is going to be Dalton Kincaid, tight end of the Buffalo Bills. Now, there's going to be people in the comments, Nick, why are you talking about Dalton Kincaid? No one's going to draft Dalton Kincaid, Nick. No one's going to do it. He fucked me last season, right? He raw dogged me. He reamed me. Okay? I get it. But he's the tight end 12 off the board at pick 110. He is 10th round pick right now. Would I ever take him there? No. You ever take him there? Probably not. But people are, right? There are people that are going to buy back in. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, can't get fooled again. You've been fooled twice. Are you going to fall for the third time? You shouldn't. There is no reason why his ADP should be this high. Now, maybe this is just too early of ADP, and people are going to get right, and he's going to be like the tight end 16, and then at that point, who gives a shit, right? If you draft him as the tight end 16, maybe he does that, right? But I'm definitely not drafting him as the tight end number 12. I will tell you that much. Tight end 29 last year on the season in PPR. Tight end 19 in terms of PPR points per game. 13 games played. He missed 3 games with a knee injury that he suffered in week 10. 75 targets, 15th at tight end, 44 receptions, 26th, 448 receiving yards, 28th. 2 total touchdowns, 4.5% rate, 25th at tight end. Now, I actually still deep down believe that Dalton Kincaid is halfway decent. The efficiency stats won't tell you that, though. 33rd in target separation, 22nd in terms of fantasy points per route run, 36th in fantasy points per target, 35th in yards per target, 21st in yards per reception, and 27th in true catch rate percentage. For me, it's very easy to understand why you don't want Dalton Kincaid, right? Last year, we might have bought him because we saw the upside, but he scored 2 touchdowns in back-to-back years. Sure, he only played 13 games last year. Sure, we'll give him an extra touchdown. Maybe we'll give him 2. He scored 4. Where do we see a path towards him scoring more than that? Where? Because I get they don't really have the guy in the red zone. That's a wide receiver, right? They don't have the guy, right? They really don't. They don't have the Diggs. They don't have fucking Megatron. They don't have Randy Moss, Chad Ochocinco, right? Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, right? They don't have that guy. You know who they have? They have that guy, Josh Allen, who, when you get in the red zone, you better believe he's barreling his ass straight in there. Him and James Cook. If James Cook doesn't hold out, which it seemed like he's probably not gonna. Seems like he's gonna be there. You're in for another season of just 3-4 touchdowns out of Dalton Kincaid. I know tight ends are super touchdown dependent, but as the tight end 12, motherfucker scored 4 total touchdowns in 2 years, 29 total games in the regular season. Just why am I drafting that? There's just no reason to. Again, sometimes fantasy football is easy, right? It's not always easy, right? You get axed in the back, right? What's your favorite scary movie? And then you get stabbed, right? By the fact that you drafted someone and they get hurt you never saw coming, right? But sometimes it's very easy to see coming. Like Dalton Kincaid not scoring touchdowns. You can just see it coming. Jaylen Warren being not the running back one on the team. Deebo Samuel getting the bed, right? We've seen these things before. Patrick Mahomes, back-to-back years outside the top 10 in terms of points per game. Sure, he was the quarterback 10 2023, right? But 3 years outside the top 9, right? And we have seen Zay Flowers back-to-back years not being able to score touchdowns. Sometimes we overthink things. Sometimes I get situations change. You can't just copy-paste what happened last season and have it happen again, because that's never the case. What I will tell you is that Dalton Kincaid is clear avoid in 2025. And let me know what you guys think about these players. Do you agree with me? Are you like, Nick, you're a genius. I can't believe you said all this. You're so smart. Or you're like, Nick, you're a fucking idiot. Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback 1. Jaylen Warren's going to be the running back 1, even though Arthur Smith said he wasn't going to be. Or, you know, I love Dalton Kincaid, right? Maybe you'll say that. So let me know down below in the comment section. Let me know one player that you will be avoiding in 2025 fantasy football that I didn't talk about at their current price. I'll leave you guys one you ever know. Check out one of the videos I screen if you haven't seen them already. Have a great one. And as always, good boy.